Obviously, you were executive producer on it. What did you make of the way they put it together? Were you happy with it?
Well, when Hollywood does Hollywood, I do boxing. I never try to compete one with the other. The idea that a story was done about my life was a big compliment, though.
Did you think that when they depicted you as a young man growing up in privation and poverty and with the broken shoes and being a very proud young boy, was that the right depiction of you?
That part, my mom, especially my mom moving into these homes, these houses that had rusty old stoves and a refrigerator, that made me cry.
Really?
It brought tears because I can remember sometimes in life it goes so fast and you end up with so many other problems and trials, you forget exactly where you come from. That little piece in the beginning really brought back memories.
Yeah, as I say, it was very emotional watching it. I mean, because I think, given how joyous you are as a human being and how much love you have in yourself as a person, certainly the time I've known you in the last kind of 20, 30 years, we forget that you did grow up in serious poverty, but maybe, as you say, Mama was so important, but also knowing what it was like to have nothing was really important to you as well.
Yeah, and you can actually forget about those things, but all of a sudden, that movie brought it back home. And so that part of it, I can put it in a suitcase, and it'll help me from this point on.
Did Mother really not want you to be a boxer?
Not at all. My mom knew. She always feared my temper. She said, "You have a temper." She didn't want me to play football, anything. She said, "Boy, you got too much of a temper." And she never watched me do a boxing match, period.
How lucky were you to go to the corps and meet the man that led you into boxing when you were kind of a late teenager, really? You saw that advert to join the corps and the work corps. It's something I didn't know too much about your life, but it was the first place where you learnt discipline and you really knuckled down, and obviously you met the man that was going to teach you about boxing.
Yeah, that Doc Broders. I went to that Job Corps Center and changed everything. It was a bluff. I told the other boys in one of the other Job Corps Centers, they said they were listening to Cassius Clay and Floyd Patterson box. And all the kids looked at me and said, "You're big. You think you're so tough. Why don't you become a boxer?" And on that bluff, on that challenge, I went out for boxing. And I had no idea it would go that far. I just wanted to be a better street fighter. Little did I know it would take up all of my life as it did.
How important at such a novice age was it for you winning the Olympic gold medal?
Strange. I had my first boxing match in February of '67. October of '68, I was an Olympic gold medalist. It was a whole lot to take in. It was unbelievable because I didn't know I was going to win an Olympic gold medal, and then to be representing your country with all of the colors on. Boy, what an amazing moment. I've still not gotten over that. It's like a dream that keeps coming on and on. It's unreal to me.
Did your life change and your ambition change in that moment then? Because in the George Foreman story, the movie, as soon as you started winning, even as an amateur, you'd said, "I want to be a world champion and I want to be an Olympic champion." Was it winning the Olympic gold? You really weren't expected to win Olympic gold. You were up against I think the guy you were against in the final, I think it was Russian, wasn't he? He'd had 205 fights already.
Yeah, I only had during the Olympics, I'd come in with like 21 boxing match or less. Nobody expected me to win. I was pretty wild and green. But after I won that thing, instantly, people would ask me to sign autographs. And I had a long time before I'd learn how to write my name to a lot of people. I was overwhelmed with joy.
Extraordinarily for today, going on to your record now, you moved in your first 38 fights. I think it was within about 3.5 years. I mean, you were literally fighting every month before you fought Joe Frazier in Kingston, Jamaica. You were 24 years old at the time when you won the WBA, WBC and the Ring heavyweight titles. When you look back on that now, what a rise, George. And what do you remember from that fight against Joe?
I can remember the good thing about it, I was boxing all the time. So getting into the ring was part of my life for over 3.5 years. But for I'd had a lot of opponents. Joe Frazier was the only one I was truly afraid of, because we looked at Joe Frazier as the giant killer. He just beaten so many guys that were so much bigger than him. Even floored Muhammad Ali and just played around with all these giants. I was hoping, I wanted a title shot, but I didn't want to fight Joe Frazier. I can remember that just like it was yesterday.
But you destroyed him in 2 rounds.
Fear would make you do a lot of things.
Were you delighted in that moment, though? I mean, in the biopic we've watched, it seemed like you were suddenly a different character. Your shirts got flashier. You started to realise the trappings of being heavyweight champion in the world. And I can always remember something you've told me in previous interviews. No one trains you to be heavyweight champion in the world. There's no book on being it. There's no university or college degree on it. You're suddenly the heavyweight champion of the world, and everybody sits on everything you say, every move you make, whenever you break a toenail. It changes your life, yeah?
Yeah, it really changed my life, because there's no prepared. You don't meet someone, sit down and give you advice and tell you what it feels like to be heavyweight champion of the world. What are you going to go through? It was all a brand new experience. When I beat Joe Frazier, it was probably the last moment, and during those years, that I found happiness. I was joyous. I felt like it was Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis, Joe Frazier, John L. Sullivan. It was like they rained into my being. I felt like heavyweight champion of the world, and I was happy. I was very happy. And from then on, I took on another personality that I could beat anyone. Nobody could touch me. That was a big change.
When you look back on that person, you've told me as well in the past when we've spoken, when you took on that personality, when you became heavyweight champion of the world, you'd watched the way Sonny Liston had walked around growling when he was heavyweight champion of the world, and you thought you had to act like a big angry bear. Is that right?
Well, I met Sonny Liston early. I sparred with him. We had the same
Oakland
manager.
Yeah, in Oakland, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Sonny Liston was very quiet. His face, he'd penetrate you with his eyes. Didn't say much, and it definitely wasn't in the smiling. So I figured, hey, that's where a boxer's going to be. I'm going to take on that personality. And I took on a lot of Sonny Liston traits. But the night I became heavyweight champion of the world, man, I was jumping and shouting. I was happy.
Well, I'm not looking to fight George Foreman. They all need to fight me. I'm an established fighter. And I draw more and more demand. The people's champ, as they say. And Foreman is a good fighter, but he beat a Frazier that I softened up for him. He hasn't yet proved himself qualified to fight the likes of me. He went a round and a half with a out of shape, seemed to be off timing Joe Frazier. And So I'm not thinking about it. I don't need him.
So you beat Ken Norton then as heavyweight champion of the world. You stop him as well. Your huge punching abilities. I think most people concur that you are probably one of the biggest punchers in the history of boxing. You beat Ken Norton in Venezuela, in Caracas, in 2 rounds. And then, of course, the most famous fight in history, I think, When We Were Kings, that brilliant Oscar-winning movie by Leon Gast was made. We've all seen it. It's the most watched fight of all time, the Rumble in the Jungle. You were still in the Rumble in the Jungle. Ali was like you are today in many ways, joyous, talking to everyone, and you were still the snarling, growling, fearsome heavyweight who everyone thought Ali was literally going to get hospitalised by in the ring. I think you were going into your 41st fight at the time, and you'd literally knocked everybody out. Apart from knocking big bags off the wall and off their chains and all those kind of things. What are your recollections looking back now on the Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire, in Kinshasa, against Muhammad Ali?
What I remember most about that boxing match, I was certain I would knock Muhammad Ali out in 1 round or 2, maybe 3 at the most. I had defeated Joe Roman easily, Ken Norton easily, Frazier, these people who had defeated Muhammad, so I had no fear. So I put everything into knocking him out in 3 rounds. After the 4th round, I can remember being shocked that he hadn't gone down. The 5th round, I was amazed. And I realized something different was happening after the 6th round, that this guy wasn't going to be knocked down. And he was the most strong-willed human being I'd ever met in or out of the ring. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. What I remember most is being shocked that I had knocked him out.
What did that fight do for you, George?
Well, I can tell you this. I wasn't a happy man after I beat Joe Frazier. If I had beaten Muhammad Ali, I still wouldn't have been a happy man. One more victory wouldn't have made me different at all. But losing that boxing match gave me a rage like none other before to recapture that title. And I remember feeling in that boxing match, not only did I lost the championship of the world, I felt like I've lost my core. What was important to me, everything important to me was gone. And I didn't know how important it was until I lost the championship of the world. I was devastated.
I'm sure you told me in a previous interview we've done that you went to Paris and hid in a hotel for 10 days because you didn't want to show your face. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was a good thing that I made up my mind. I was not ready to go back home to the United States at all. I couldn't figure what had happened. I had to put myself together again. I did go to Paris, stayed in a nice hotel, sit there, room service. Nobody saw me and didn't go in. I didn't go out. Stayed in the room, brooding, wondering, and trying to figure out what had happened.